All right, well, welcome back to Really Ringwood. Now, the last time we spoke, we were congratulating Dr. Bernice, our superintendent of Ringwood Schools, on his Superintendent of the Year award. And we published an episode just the day before that most recent Board of Education meeting, and we encouraged all of you to come out and support Dr. Bernice in person.
And you did. Over 100 people crowded the meeting, with most of the people who got up to speak thanking and praising Dr. Bernice, from parents to students to his fellow educators to other citizens who are happy that we have Dr. Bernice at the helm.
However, there were a few people who were there not to praise Bernice, but to come after him and his job performance. In addition to those voices, a few of whom we will highlight later in the show, the Board of Education also took the first step to potentially remove Dr. Bernice from his role.
Okay, so now on that, the procedural stuff. The board added an agenda item following their closed-door executive session. It was an agenda item that was not published in advance of the meeting. It was not in the agenda that you could see beforehand, nor in the addendum that they added just before the meeting started. Now, this agenda item was grouped into the, quote, staffing items the board was to vote on that night for routine, non-controversial items. It was the notice that's required to the auto renewal portion of the contract that Dr. Bernice has. So just listen to how this played out.
Board resolution. Whereas the Ringwood Board of Education is a party to a contract of employment with the current Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Nicholas Bernice, that provides for the employment of Dr. Bernice by the board from January 1st, 2020 until June 30th, 2024, and whereas pursuant to paragraph number 10 of the contract of employment, Dr. Bernice shall be deemed automatically reappointed for another contract term of the same duration as the contract of employment unless the board notifies Dr. Bernice in writing as authorized by a majority of the full membership of the board on or before December 1st, 2023, that he will not be reappointed. And whereas the board requires additional time to consider whether to offer Dr. Bernice another contract of employment beginning July 1st, 2024, and the terms of any such offer, now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby adopts this resolution by a majority of the full membership of the board to notify Dr. Bernice that he will not be reappointed for another contracted term of employment at the end of the term of his current contract of employment on June 30th, 2024.
Thank you. The discussion, we can now have discussion on it for the amended. This is just so the public knows. There's a clause in there that we have to pass this in order to negotiate different terms of his contract, or else it, like the resolution says, it's automatically renews over the same terms for a 5-year period.
The Ringwood School Board has shown a history of introducing agenda items that the public may find controversial or deserve public input before being voted on with no prior notice. The board does this as they are fearful of public input that would be in contradiction to what they are trying to do. Here we have a recently named Superintendent of the Year being put on notice that his contract would not be automatically renewed as it has been in years past when the school year comes to a conclusion in June of 2024. Strangely, the Board of Ed chose tonight to add this item to the agenda when the teachers, parents, and students were participating in the public comment portion of the meeting to congratulate Dr. Bernice for not just a job well done in Ringwood, but for the award that he'd won.
While it is possible the board is looking to offer better compensation, make minor changes to his contract, or just simply make a few additional requirements or addendums to the contract, we know that the Board of Ed have their own plans in mind.
Right, and we've discussed how many on the board, especially the 3 incoming members, are backed and supported by outside influences. We've discussed the New Jersey Project and Chaos and Control, but we have a few other groups that have found their way into Ringwood, and judging by those who moderate and post for them, it is not hard to connect the dots to see where they are truly rooted. Specifically, look at NJ Schools on Facebook. You'll find the name of individuals who moderate other Facebook groups in Ringwood, where if you don't agree with them, you get bullied or banned into submission. In fact, let's just show you a couple posts that were recently found where even our program, Really Ringwood, was referenced. Now, also note that the group known as Moms for Liberty, which is more of a national movement that has a history of hate-based activity, has also gotten into the ears of residents of Ringwood.
Well, it's a little bit hard to see because of the photo and also because we don't want to show any children on the show without permission. You can see how many kids were at the Board of Ed meeting, and frankly, it was very heartening to see so many kids involved.
When was the last time your children took an interest in government? Exactly! The teachers and the principals of Ringwood saw this as a unique opportunity to involve the very students that Dr. Bernice has impacted through his leadership on Ringwood schools by inviting them to speak on his behalf and congratulate him on winning the Superintendent of the Year award and for his years of being an active part of Ringwood schools.
Take a look at the background of this video from the live stream. You would expect to see every community member be a respectful audience member and either applauding or encouraging students for being brave enough to speak publicly for the first time in their lives. Oh wait, that isn't what you're seeing here. While many in the audience had the respect and awareness that these children are participating in government in a positive way, you see some of your neighbors being less than supportive.
Right. Now, let's focus on the public speaking from two members of the community. Former Board of Education member Richard Ebersbach spoke not once, but twice during the meeting and was claiming to have, as he calls it, raw data showing how bad Ringwood scores are.
Rich Ebersbach, Ringwood, New Jersey. Congratulations on your award, Dr. Bernice. If anybody's interested, I have compiled data and raw data here of our ELA scores for one. We are now at the bottom of our surrounding districts, Oakland, Pequannock, Wyckoff, Pompton Lakes, Wanacue, West Milford, Hawthorne, and Ringwood is at the bottom in the performance of those of our neighboring districts. And if anybody is concerned about the academic performance that we've seen, it's I was on the board for 3 years. We fought it out last year over the sex ed curriculum, while the whole time our scores were have been on a decline. Prior to that, prior to COVID, it's a systemic issue. We're choosing bad curriculum under the auspice of Superintendent Bernice. We have a pattern of low scores that speaks to Dr. Bernice's refusal to use evidence-based curriculum and interventions. His decisions are not data-based, which is contrary to what the New Jersey standards are. Interventions, so when the student's having a problem, are not specific to students' needs because Dr. Bernice is not monitoring the process frequently enough. As a result, these interventions that we're seeing with our kids, we have a lot of kids that are struggling with reading and math. It's arguably, we are years behind. We have, and this is from 8th down to first grade, our students are years behind in their academics performance. The scores are right here. The proficiency is very low.
Now, the period of time that he's specifically focusing on in the drop in scores between 2019 and 2022, for 3 of those 4 years, Ebersbach himself was on the board and having run unopposed in 2020. Now, while it is clear that the superintendent has something to do with the test scores, there are so many factors that come into play, including the competency and the effectiveness of the board during his tenure. Now, not to mention that this data is culled from the era, of COVID-19, when schools all over were just simply trying to figure out how to educate our children with the unusual and dangerous circumstances that we were all finding ourselves in.
When speaking with parents both in and out of New Jersey, it's worth noting that Ringwood, with its dedicated remote classes, was consistently praised among folks that I spoke with for having solutions that benefited those who chose to remain home for the 2020 to 2021 school year, as well as those who went back to school. The hybrid model was chaotic for both sets of children, and Ringwood had an innovative approach that served both.
There was also a public comment from former Board of Education candidate David Palmisano, who ran unsuccessfully on the For the Kids campaign in 2022. His comments took a very personal tone, attacking Dr. Bernice for changing his attitude once Palmisano, quote, crossed his agenda.
Dave Palmisano, Stonetown Road, Ringwood. Dr. Bernice, thank you. I appreciate your service to our country. That's why this is so hard for me with you, because in the beginning we had such great conversations and interactions until I crossed your agenda. And then when I crossed your agenda, it became very mean and not good for me. You put my kid in a closet, a data closet.
Can you just address the board president?
I'll address you.
Thank you.
You allowed him to put my kid in a closet, a data closet, when we opted out of health class. For a month, I emailed you and the rest of the people at the board and him. You did nothing until a story came out. Then all of a sudden, the next day, he pulled my kid and another kid out. But that's fine, okay? You had another woman here a couple of meetings ago was saying my kid's getting choked out weekly and you're doing nothing about it. $30 million budget. Are we even in the top 50% of New Jersey? According to the test scores, yeah, our kids are not test scores. That's a nice talking point. They're here to learn, and tests are how you gauge if the children are learning. If they fail the test, they don't learn. It's very simple. So let's get rid of the talking points, okay? Who kept us out of school during COVID longer than anyone around us? Who pushed for digital learning after school, once we were back in school? Who pushed to keep the masks on kids longer than anybody around us? No wonder why all the other school systems are doing better. Because at the end of the day, Dr. Bernice is the captain of the ship. Listen, do you think any of my employees are going to come to my work and talk bad about me? Of course they're going to tell me how wonderful I am and how great I am. They're my employees, okay? At the end of the day, it comes down to, are you doing the right thing? Are our $30 million being spent properly? Are the kids educated? Are they safe? You're accusing kids of bullying and doing things that aren't doing anything, and the people that are threatening, saying, I'm going to come to your house and kill you, verified by teachers and other students, you do nothing about. So it's either you did nothing on purpose because it was my kid, and you did it specifically toward me, or it's just your incompetence to run and keep our schools safe.
Thank you for...
Do you remember the closet incident, anybody? Do you guys remember this closet?
I remember that.
Well, if not, check our show notes because we did a whole episode on it last year. But essentially, the claim was this. Due to opting out of the sex education curriculum, students were, quote, shoved into a utility closet during those periods. Now, this was not a closet, and the New Jersey Department of Children and Families confirmed that no abuse or neglect happened. Now, where did this story begin? I'm going to give you guys 3 guesses. Any ideas?
I might have an idea.
I only need one.
Yep, you guessed it. Chaos and Control, a.k.a. the New Jersey Project.
But you see, apparently that wasn't enough because Palmisano is relitigating that whole closet incident in public, accusing Dr. Bernice of using Palmisano's children to get back at him. Now, even if you disagree with the job that Dr. Bernice or any public servant is doing, to accuse them of being underhanded or using your children as pawns is just, it's ridiculous and it's beyond the pale of being a parent. And that should not be taken lightly.
Even though these voices were loud, and if you listen to the audio, you'll hear just how loud they were, it's important to note that the vast majority of folks at this meeting were pro Dr. Bernice. We know how much of an echo chamber Ringwood can be, especially on Facebook, where groups like Ringwood Voices and Ringwood Moms and Dads can amplify and distort the types of statements and agendas that were being spouted by this vocal minority at the Board of Ed meeting.
So earlier in 2023, the Board of Ed limited how the public can participate in school board meetings. While they continue to allow the meetings to be live streamed via Zoom, they no longer allow public participation from home. Additionally, they are no longer reading correspondence sent to the board office aloud during the meetings. And, well, judging by how the board will be conducting the business of our schools with these new candidates coming in, it has become more important than ever that you need to be in attendance at every meeting to hold the board accountable to what is best for our children, our teachers, our administrators, and, most importantly, our Ringwood.
In addition, you can send your emails to the official Board of Ed address, and this will ensure that they are entered into the record and would be seen by members of the board.
For board members and their supporters who ran on for the kids and academics before whatever platforms, these actions are in direct contrast to the words they used to get elected. Remember this, Ringwood. Actions, not campaign slogans, or not politically motivated mailers and hate speech, are truly telling of what officials do once they are in power.
I mean, seriously, as a community, we can do better, and you have to stay active and aware of what's happening in Ringwood so that better can happen.